I declare that my current chapter is not my conclusion. Maybe your story is in the middle of some painful paragraphs. But this too shall pass. And these paragraphs are just part of a larger story that God is writing. So, our declaration is this: I will not live like I don't know the end of the story. I know how it ends, and every tear will be wiped away, and every broken thing will be made beautiful. No matter how defeated you feel or hopeless your situation might seem, your story isn't over, and the chapter that you're in is not your conclusion. God is still God. God has not lost his touch. So hold on. Hold on. This chapter you're in, it may be hard and it may be heavy, but it has not come to stay. It has come to pass. Listen to me. Even if you can't quite see God in your story, he sees you. And one day, maybe even on the side of heaven, you will look back on this chapter and you will see that God was with you, and every tear that you cried, and every prayer that you whispered, he has always been in the shadows. And you can trust him with your story. You know, there is no cry you have ever cried that went unheard by God. He sees you. He hears you. He knows you. He understands what you are walking through. He understands what you have gone through. He understands what you're going through. When you walk through the darkest valley, he knows. When you grieve the deepest of grief, he hears. He knows. God is described as an experience as personal and real and intimate. He loves you beyond measure. And he walks with you. He knows your hurts and your pain. He knows your joys, and he knows what delights you. He knows what scares you and what makes you anxious. He knows you. The God has the power and strength to give you a new course for your life, to take you out of the land that you are living in that feels destructive, that feels hopeless, that feels barren. And he says, I have a new land I can take you into, a better place. God says, will you walk with me? I'll lead you there. You don't get a choice of what's gonna come your way, but you get to choose what grows. You get to choose what grows. And who you become on the other side of it. But the wilderness is where God prepares us to live in freedom as his people. It's in the wilderness that God transforms us. I will not be defined by what happens to me or what's been done to me. I will not be bound by others' expectations. I am held in the hands of the one who turns graves into gardens. And he takes the wounded and he turns them into warriors. And just because I'm in a valley, that doesn't make me a victim. My confidence isn't in my strength, it's in his sovereignty. I'm not saying that my path is easy, but I am saying that my God is faithful. I'm not saying I don't feel a little lost, but I am saying that my God does not lose. We are not characters lost in some tragedy. We are children of the King, so we will live like kids. I'm not saying that I understand every delay. I don't. But I'm saying I trust his timing. I'm not saying the season isn't hard. I'm saying his purpose will prevail and purpose will rise from the pain. So let the setbacks come, let opposition rise, let the Hamans hate. Let the gallows be built, because we serve a God who sees it all. And he doesn't sleep and he doesn't slumber, but he turns orphans into queens. And he turns persecution into promotion without even having to be mentioned. Every setback is a setup for a louder testimony, a deeper victory, a higher purpose. And every setback will come to pass. And his purpose will prevail, so I'm going to live like it. Because he is my strength, I will not shrink back in fear or cave into pressure or obsess over how people respond. I will not settle for a safe and comfortable life, but I will step forward with boldness. When the stakes are high and the path is unclear, I will not rush ahead in my own strength and arrogance. I will find the courage to slow down and ask for help and ask for people to pray for me. I will live with space in my life to hear His voice, and when He says move, I'll move. And when He says speak, I will speak. I may not be well positioned, I may not be powerful, but I will be prayerful. And I will live my life for such a time as this. So one day, when our stories come to pass, may our stories like Esther's, these stories of people who chose courage over comfort, calling over convenience, and faith over fear, and significance over security, and prayer over panic, that our God is in the shadows, keeping watch over His own, and that His purposes will always prevail. God knows what you're going through. He knows your circumstances. He knows precisely what you have and exactly what you need. He's the sovereign God. You may think today, oh, I have blown it so much, God can never use me. No, if you've blown it, you ask for forgiveness, you get right, and you wait for God's next word, and I promise you, He's not done with you yet. He has a purpose for you. He will take what's wrong, and somehow He will weave it together into His plan, and He will make it right. God's not done with you. God's not done with you. I came here to encourage someone. I came to lift you up, to speak some hope into your life, to let you know that you have not made too many mistakes. You are not at a distance that God cannot reach you. You are not at a place in your life where Jesus has written you off. As a matter of fact, you are in the perfect position for God to do something greater than you ever thought possible. Because it is in our failure, our weaknesses, and our struggles that we feel the true weight of God's grace and mercy and love. I've got my identity from God. I know that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and when I'm weak, His grace is sufficient for me. If you will spend time with God, He will show you photographs and glimpses of who you really are. You are not a drug addict, you're not an alcoholic the rest of your life, you're not a failure, you're not a loser. God has a better plan. The story has not ended yet. Some of you went through a divorce. That was the end of a chapter. The chapter is ended, but that's not the end of the story. God is not finished with you. That's not the end of your story. It's the end of a chapter. Or you've gone through something else, that's the end of a chapter. It's not the end of your life. God has a greater purpose, and right now He's working on you, and He will give you the grace and the power to handle. He will never put more on you than He puts in you to bear it out. Because failure is only when you refuse to get back up. You can't wallow in your shame forever. You can't walk around feeling guilty forever. Get up. We all struggle. We all fall. We all fail. We are human. We are prone to weakness. It may look like it's over. It may look like the clock has timed out. But with God, He's always got another play. Always has another play. God says, I love you, and I'm not done with you. I'm not throwing you out. I haven't given up on you. And maybe right now everything looks like a mess and nothing makes sense. It just means the master isn't finished with the masterpiece yet. God can take the mess and turn it into a masterpiece. It may look like a mess right now, but God's not finished yet. Don't get off the master potter's wheel until He's finished. And I want to tell you that the potter sees what you're going to become before he ever started. I'm going to stay on this wheel to see what the end is going to be. He knows what He's doing. He does it because He loves you, because He's not going to throw you out. He still has a plan. that God's not finished yet, that he can bring beauty from ashes. Stay on the wheel, let God finish.